In the Green family, we call him our brother with the last name involving a different color, Dan Brown.
Hey everybody, you enjoying Vidcon? What the hell are you doing? Like that, if I was to walk up to a friend of mine and be like, are you having a good day? If their initial response was, woo! It'd be a little bit weird, but no, I'm legitimately curious though, as to whether or not you are enjoying video conference. All right, well that went pretty well. Let's try another question here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the question, and then I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and in unison, just like you did. I'm glad the annoying orange went before me because they got you used to this. In unison, I want you to say the answer. It's going to be a little bit more difficult than the last one, but I'm asking question 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Okay, what is pi to 10 digits? 3, 2, 1, go.
3.14.
No, so we need, someone in the front knows it. Someone raise your hand if you know it. Get up here. Okay. Your name is?
Leah.
And Leah, where are you from?
I'm from Winnipeg, Canada.
A lot of Canadians. And what is pi to 10 digits?
3.1415926536.
Was that right? Well, let's pretend it was right. I made my talk as though they got it right. You're good. You won a new car. No. So go ahead, have a seat. Thanks for the help. Round of applause. Louder. More. Go crazy. My life has been controlled by you guys so much this last year that I am relishing this opportunity to turn it around a little bit. All right, so what we just experienced there was a little bit, a taste of what you might call crowd intelligence, the hive mind, if you will. A little bit of a stretch. It was one person from the audience who knew the answer, but if it wasn't for the fact that there was a crowd, statistically speaking, someone probably wouldn't have known the answer. So, crowds. Crowds are interesting. Crowds are very, very cool. When given a straightforward problem, a straightforward question, even if that's a difficult problem or a difficult question, very consistently, crowds will come up with either the correct answer or a very good answer. And that really is a very interesting phenomenon. And that's what I knew when I started Dan 3.0. That's what fascinated me. And so for those of you who don't know, my name is Dan Brown. I'm a video blogger. I have been on the YouTubes for over 4 years now. And last year at Vidcon, I gave a talk where I announced a much hyped project called the Dan 3.0, where I attempted to give control of my life to my audience for a year. And so at my talk last year, I framed Dan 3.0 as being 3 things. I framed it as being a project, I framed it as being a show, and most importantly, in hindsight, I framed it as being a social experiment. Now, every experiment has a question at its core that it's trying to answer. And so I suppose the question at the core of Dan 3.0 would have been, pretty simply, is this possible? Can this work? Is it possible for someone to have their life controlled by a crowd? And you'd think after a year of subjecting myself to this that I would have some sort of definitive answer, but I don't really. And that's because, yes, Dan 3.0 was an experiment, but more specifically than that, it was a case study. It wasn't just asking generally, is it possible for any Joe Schmo to turn over their life to generic internet? No, it was very specific. It was, is it possible for a very specific person to give control of their life at a very specific point in their life to really a very specific audience? I mean, someone may very well emulate the idea in the future, and they may experience great success with that, and by the way, more power to them, for the record. But for me, it didn't really work. At least not in the way that one might have been led to believe it would work through watching the speech I gave here last year. So, why not? There were a lot of small technical things that could have gone a lot better. I needed a more clearly defined algorithm for determining what tasks I was going to do. The decision engine was a little bit clunky. I was trying to do too much. I was not only subjecting myself to the experiment, but also producing the show, and that was prohibitive in a lot of ways. But those were all little things. Those are all things that someone who tries to do it in the future could get past pretty simply. I think the biggest thing for me was that I was completely unprepared for just how psychologically taxing Dan 3.0 would be. And I'm not going to say anything too terribly conclusive here, because honestly, I'm still sorting through everything. I'm still trying to make sense of the emotional roller coaster that the last year has been. When Dan 3.0 ended, I started seeing a therapist. We talk about this a lot. And so, a few things. Let me check my notes here real quick. All right. Dan 3.0 left me feeling really vulnerable, really just exposed. I went through a lot of things very publicly that I really, honestly, would have rather not gone through publicly. I went through a breakup. My grandfather died. These are very private, personal things. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I knew what I was signing up for. I knew that things would be public. And I knew that at times that was going to be really challenging. But I guess I just didn't fully grasp. How can you fully grasp before you do something like this? Just the level to which that will be challenging. So that's one thing. Another thing would be, and this is something that I really didn't foresee at all, I didn't think about at all, was I wasn't able to make any plans. I didn't know what I was going to be doing a month down the road, or a week down the road, or in some cases a day down the road. And so if someone came up to me with some sort of an opportunity, I couldn't say yes. And then sometimes those were big things. Sometimes, I mean, it's really difficult to maintain a meaningful social life like that. So that's another thing. The biggest thing, though, is that the biggest motivating factor behind my getting involved in something this crazy was a desire on my part, somewhat consciously, somewhat unconsciously, to be more deeply understood by my audience, by you guys. Because I've grown up with this. I mean, this means the world to me. YouTube. This. And, I mean, there's a lot of human being that hides between jump cuts. And so, through doing Dan 3.0, do I feel like I'm more understood? Yeah, I really do. But do I feel like I'm deeply understood? No. And I think the biggest lesson of Dan 3.0 is that I never will be. YouTube is very cool. I'm preaching to the choir here, but it is. I mean, it's a very cool medium. It is the most personal, the most interactive mass media medium to have ever existed. And with that comes a whole bunch of potential for a whole bunch of really cool things. But it doesn't matter what someone does in a video. It doesn't matter how often someone posts videos. I think it's really easy for us to get caught up in the buzzwords, get caught up in the hype of just how cool YouTube is. But there is a limit to how personal the medium can be. And so it is not possible for a person to be deeply understood through media alone. And that's the biggest takeaway for me from Dan 3.0. And so I'm going to end my talk here just by reiterating that point. I'm not just talking about YouTube even. I'm talking about the universe, life. It's not possible for a person to be deeply understood through media alone. Think about that. Thanks.